This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
You don't like the Drake?
I hate the Drake.
I love the Drake.
How could you not like the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
The Drake is good. You like the Drake?
I love the Drake.
What about the Drake?
Screw the Drake. I love the Drake.
This podcast will take a chronological look at the third boy to wear the mantle of Robin, Tim Drake, through the 90s and 2000 Robin series, Red Robin, Young Justice, and Teen Titans. And from time to time taking a look at the modern era of Tim Drake in the pages of DC Comics, while also talking about other Robin and Batman happenings in the world. So sit back and relax and find out why everyone loves the Drake.
Good for them. Love the Drake.
Got to love the Drake.
I'm impressed.
What can I say? I'm irresistible.
Hello and welcome to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. I am Ryan Haas, and this is episode 78. We can be found on various social media outlets such as Twitter at ELTD Podcast, Facebook at facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake, and you can email the show at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com, and we will read your comments on the air. You can also leave a review over on iTunes to help spread the word about the show. As you can hear, this is one of the classic re-recorded intros for the ELTD podcast, but it is not Rob. No, it is me, Ryan. And the reason for that is because I'm not actually on this show. And I thought it would be fun to do the intro myself. And also in classic ELTD fashion, I thought, give you a little peek behind the curtain here. We originally were going to do this really cool King Snake storyline and get back into the normal Robin timeline in the main Robin series, and which was Detective Comics 685, Robin 17, and Batman Detective Comics 686. We were all very excited. We all had it planned out. We were going to record, and of course I screwed things up because I got sick yet again. It's one of those things I'm discovering as a new father. When you have a toddler in daycare, you do tend to get sick. So that was a bummer because we were looking forward to it, and I'm sure you'll hear Terence and Rob talk about that when they get into the show. And what this show actually is a review of Robin Plus number 1, which features Impulse, which is written by Wade and Augustine, and Brian Augustine, by the way, is one of the guys that wrote Batman Gotham by Gaslight, which is a pretty popular Batman story. And just a little mini plug here, we've got 2 Batman on Film episodes from earlier this year where we interview him about that book, and then there's also a commentary with him that goes over the animated adaptation of Gotham by Gaslight, which were some pretty fun shows. So I would listen to those after you listen to this show if you have a good time. And my little mini review of Robin Plus Impulse is I enjoyed it. It's kind of a quick, fun little read, and to me, it's kind of it plays like a quick, fun episode of the animated series. It's just fun character work, fun little story. But I'm going to let Rob and Terrence take it from here, and hopefully the next episode we'll get back to this King Snake storyline.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Robin. Everyone Loves the Drake comic podcast. I am your host, Rob Myers. Welcome to episode 78. With me is my good buddy, Terence O'Neill, and it's been a little bit since you've been on the show.
I'm back. I've a 2-episode absence. You guys, I said, I can't make this episode, and then all of a sudden that turned into 2 episodes, and the fan mail has been overwhelmingly positive of my absence. But too bad, guys, you're back. Now I'm back. So, but yeah, no, it's good to be here. And I'm looking forward to a kind of a special issue today. This is kind of unique.
Yeah, I had made a post on Twitter that this episode we were going to cover Detective 685 and 688, that crossed over with Robin 17, obviously. That was the plan. And then Ryan sent us this picture of him in the hospital wearing one of those medical masks because he had to take his daughter to the hospital because they thought she had strep throat. And then guess what? Ryan now has it too.
Wah, wah. And actually, his whole family's got strep throat, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that did change the plans just a little bit. So we got to thinking, well, what were we going to do? So our sister show, Batman and Rob, the Eternal Podcast, go check us out on iTunes. We thought, well, we were going to record something there. And then Terrence had this really cool idea. I think it just fit in if you're kind of reading the Flash books right now. I'm just going to let Terrence say this. This is us jumping forward just a little bit into our timeline, which I will have something to do about that a little bit later. That's kind of a little further down the road. We'll explain this idea. But Terrence had a good way for us to kind of break off a little bit from what we've normally been doing. So, Terrence, why don't you tell the good people out there kind of what your idea was?
Yeah, so you actually got to speak to the author of this book, which is I'm kind of jealous here because he also wrote Gotham by Gaslight. But back in 96, DC Comics came out with these like one-shots called like Plus One, I guess, like kind of like a wedding, it's you plus one. And at the time, one of the hot comics was Impulse from The Flash. And ready for spoilers here? So if you don't want to be spoiled, okay, you were warned. Flash 50 just wrapped up, and that was the end of the Flash War. And just like in the last 2 pages, just thrown out of nowhere, Impulse comes back. There was no rhyme for it. There was no reason. I'm sure they'll have some kind of backstory. The Flash War story was great. So if you weren't reading it, you got to pick that up. But there was a whole thing with the space-time continuum, and now the Flashes can't just travel in time at will like Barry Allen did for the Flashpoint. So I'm assuming it had something to do with that. But what was cool is the picture in Flash 50 looks just like the cover of Robin plus Impulse #1 from 1996 that we're going to review. So he's in his classic costume. He's not in the Kid Flash, and he's not been changed to a man like he was for a while. He was an adult and had like the shortest running Flash book. I think it went 13 issues or something like that before they brought back Wally West and his kids. So we said, let's do this. I hinted this on our YouTube page. I actually made a couple YouTube videos this week, and we are at 96 subscribers on the YouTube page. So I've got a little something special planned when we hit 100 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, go there. When we hit 100, we can have like a nice, easy website name for it. But right now, it's just some like random letters and numbers after YouTube.com. So just search "Everyone Loves the Drake" or "Everyone Loves the Drake" podcast, and you'll see it there. And so I kind of teased this. So when we hit 100 subscribers, Rob doesn't even know what the special thing is. So yes,
yeah, I was watching it, going, "Hey, I'm not sure what he has. Do I know about this? I'm not sure."
No. Gonna have to watch.
Yeah, watch it be something like your junk mail or something like that. So this will be kind of fun to see what this is going to be like as you do this.
It's a like Maury Povich does those like paternity things.
Yeah.
It's a DNA test to see who is Rob's real father. Or
Yeah, who was the guy that I forget the name of the guy that had the TV broadcast about Al Capone's vault and trying to think like, what was that guy's name?
oh, that was no. Oh gosh, what was that guy's name? People are like screaming it right now.
They're
into
like
their
so and
things.
so.
Oh man, I totally blank. I see his face. I see his mustache.
Yeah,
and
with
everything. Yeah,
Right. Oh my gosh.
This is where Rob's editor's note will be in here. Oh, I just got it. Geraldo Rivera.
Yeah, that's right.
And I did not. That came from the back of my mind somewhere. I did not use Google for that one, but yeah. Oh yeah.
So you end up watching that live broadcast where they open the vault?
Oh yeah.
I remember watching that whole thing. They get to the end of it, and there's nothing there but a bunch of crap and boxes and dirt. No wonder you got a chair thrown at you, Geraldo. So what's your thing going to be, like this empty bag and board?
Yeah. It's an empty bag and board. Well, hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have a couple more subscribers.
Yeah, that'll be
and
really
we'll
cool
there,
to see.
So we know
what is in the bag and board to your Geraldo Rivera thing, duck, so a chair doesn't hit you. So that's what Terrence has got going over at the YouTube page. Like I said, we're really close to 100, and I know he's talking about some Young Justice comic book stuff there, which kind of filters into the book that we're talking about, Robin plus Impulse. So we might as well just get into it. This came out in December of 1996. So this is what I'm calling Jumping the Redbird, if you will. This is going to be a feature once we launch our Patreon. One of the tiers is going to be, we haven't got it ironed out yet, but something you can do where you want us to jump chronologically in from where we are. So let's say we're at issue 35 and you say, hey, I want you guys to jump to issue 125 and cover that story arc. So we would cover that story arc and then jump back. So that's a feature that we're going to have once we launch our Patreon. But I know, Terrence, you said you had a question or so before we get started into this. So what do you got?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I know you said you were reading The Flash at this time, and so was I. And I have the floppy copy. You have the floppy too, right?
Yeah.
So we can talk about some of the ads and things like that. That's always fun to travel back in time, 22 years, and see this what was being sold to us. But what was your thoughts on Impulse? At this point, Impulse had been in the Flash book for a while, and he had his own book as well. So I was just curious, what were your thoughts on Impulse, and then also his appearance in the Young Justice cartoon?
I liked Impulse. I had a confession. I really wasn't reading him in his own book that much, and even his own little miniseries. It was only when he appeared in The Flash. I really liked him. I didn't read much of him until the Young Justice comic book series came out, so that wasn't until much later, obviously. But I always dug him, and I loved his outfit and just his interaction, again, with Tim, but that's not until Young Justice. But I always really liked him with his interactions in with the Flash, Wally West. I just thought that was just a really good characterization between the two. And I also liked that he was a relative of Barry Allen, which I thought was really pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I like him. And then for listeners who are not as familiar with Impulse, he's Bart Allen, and he's from the future. I believe he's Barry Allen's like great grandson or great grandson, because Barry Allen, I believe his continuity gets really, really stiff. But I believe he died in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah. But before he died, he went to the future.
You sound funny.
And lived his life with his wife in the future for a while. And in the future, they had children. And then this was his grandchildren. So he's like from the year like 2900 or something. Like he's like really far in the future. And when he was born, he had the power of the Speed Force, and he was taken and put in like a virtual reality simulator where nothing could harm him. So no matter what he did, like if he ran out into traffic, the cars would stop, or the program would reset, or all these things. So when he's come up time on Earth, he doesn't have that sense of danger. Like he'll walk out in traffic and think, oh yeah, he just doesn't have that, which is kind of a really fun thing to do in comics. And he's got like a sort of a guru, Max Mercury, who I believe is now just not in the continuity at all. I believe when they did the Flash War, I think there was like little snippets of him like in the background as they're running through the time stream, but I don't think he's actually made it as a full-time character in the new Rebirth. So it was a really fun book. But the thing I didn't like, and this kind of turned me off on comics, is it seemed to be right around this time in '96, and especially with books with younger heroes like Impulse and Robin get kind of suckered into this old stylized art where it looks really almost like Japan animation, what they call I forget what they call that. But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But it was like before manga. I mean, maybe manga was around, but it was before it was really a popular thing in America. But it's like the heads are really big. They almost look like Funko Pop dolls. Huge feet, big hands. Things aren't really in proportion or natural looking, and it's very cartoony. And a lot of times it takes me out of the story, and a lot of people kind of like copied it. Like on page 15 in the story, jumping around, there's a picture of Bart's face where he's screaming, and it's just like over exaggerated, almost like a Teen Titans Go kind of thing, or Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
And I really did not like it. I mean, what did you think of this style, or were you aware of that style creeping in at this time? And it seems to have gone away too, so which I'm happy about. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on that?
The style didn't bother me so much. I mean, other than the Flash, I mean, even the Robin book a little bit around this time, we'll start getting some over exaggerated things. That was just Samurai Jack might not have been out around this time, but it's kind of like that real. I think you hit the nail on the head. Real Teen Titans Go and just loud and aggressive, but it didn't really phase the Bat books that much. Like it crept into Robin a little bit, but it wasn't so like in your face. And maybe that's why I wasn't picking up Impulse at the time, where I guess I kind of rectified it or compartmentalized it that this is just how he was in the future. But again, you could kind of, like you said, you could kind of see that through this era of DC Comics. But I was just kind of glad it didn't really affect the Batman comics, because I was kind of a one-trick pony back then. If it wasn't a Bat family character, I really wasn't reading it that much, other than kind of Aquaman a little bit and Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern, which at the same time did get some of that big head, big feet, but I really noticed it more in the Flash book when Bart was in there, because I think that was just a good way of showing more speed. I could be full of, horse manure if that's something, but anyway, I'll tell you the funny thing or the odd thing about this, as I was prepping to do this show, I don't remember hardly anything. I know I read it and I was excited to get it, to be like, oh, cool. Impulse is in this with Robin, and we kind of got a little bit of a taste of an annual, if you will. But I was going, did you remember this? Am I the only one here?
Yeah, I read this book yesterday, and I don't remember it.
Okay.
Like, as I read it, I realized, I don't remember anything at all about this book. And right before I read this book, I read the Batman 100-page comic from Walmart, #1, which had just fantastic. The original story is fantastic. I'm not familiar with that artist, but Patch Zuricher was his name.
Yeah.
And we're going to review that on the Robin. Batman and Robin Eternal podcast. Yep. So check out our sister podcast for that.
Plug.
But then also the second story in there is the first chapter of Hush with Jim Lee's pencils, which are just, man, in this 100-page book, in the glossy paper, the art looks just phenomenal. It just looks so great. I hadn't read that first chapter in years. And then I read the other story in that is the Nightwing story with Eddie Barrow's artwork, which that's the New 52 Nightwing #1, which is also incredible artwork, and they're all very realistic and just fantastic. The Harley Quinn story I skipped. I'm not.
Same here.
I thumbed through it. I'm like, yeah, I remember this. I'm not gonna read it.
Nope.
Yeah. And then I read Batman 51 and 52, the Lee Weeks art. And then I went to Robin Impulse. So the stylized drawing of Robin kind of really shook me after reading those art and seeing those artwork.
Yeah.
It really shook me. What was I going to say? Oh, so the month that this came out, just to give people some perspective, that is the month that Robin 36 came out. So this is where we're jumping to. And Impulse, let's see, what Impulse number came out? Impulse had little lower sales, so I have to go down. Oh, here we go. Impulse number 20 came out that month. Wow. And also that month, which is kind of surprising, but Batman The Long Halloween number 1 came out that month, which was only the 43rd best-selling book of the month, but yet that has, gone on to influence movies and is probably more well-known than all these X books that are in the top 40 here.
All right, like we do, this is a good time to grab your book if you got it. If you don't, go download it. And we'll get into the synopsis for Robin plus Impulse number 1. Here we go. All right, for the synopsis, Robin Plus One. Cover date is December 1996. On sale date is October 30th, 1996. Cover price is $2.95. Oh, we've had a jump in price, but we've also jumped in years in the show here, just a few. The editor is Jordan B. Gorfinkel. The title is Dashing Through the Snow. Writer is Brian Michael Augustine. Writer also is Mark Wade. Penciler is John Royal. Inker is Rob Lee. Letter is John Costanza. And the colorist is Jason Wright. The cover credits go to Mike Rowingo. I love trying to pronounce his name. And John Dell III. The synopsis today is taken from DCWikia.com. And here we go for the synopsis, Dashing Through the Snow. In Gotham City, Robin investigates a burglary of an old computer equipment involving a former spy of the Soviet Union named Proiter Vilk. Vilk's trail leads to a ski resort in Virginia. Therefore, Tim Drake decides to travel there with some friends and Alfred Pennyworth. Arriving there as well as none other than Impulse, together with his high school class, as well as Maxwell Mercury, who quote-unquote volunteered to look after the kids. Bart and Tim meet for the first time using a ski lift while Tim is eager for some action. Bart clearly seems petrified of skiing, thus backs off in front of his classmates. After sunset, Bart watches how none other than Vilk leaves the lodge with the briefcase. Robin is alerted also and follows Vilk using cross-country skis, but he is not careful enough. That is why Vilk fires a gun at the boy wonder. Thanks to Impulse, none of the bullets hit their target. Robin thanks Bart for the help and immediately realizes that Bart Allen and Impulse are one and the same person. Robin agrees to team up with Impulse, but without revealing his own secret identity. Again, following Vilk, our heroes discover a military camp. Via radio, Alfred advises Robin to stay put because an extremely volatile militia group named the White Heat might be involved. Of course, Impulse does not wait for nobody and runs into the camp, and the fight with the bad guys begins. Mistral, a woman on an undercover mission, joins the fray as well. The three heroes try to follow Vilk and his partner Deegan, but the villains escape. An incoming blizzard worsens the situation for the heroes, and in the lodge, Max Mercury decides to search for Bart Allen. Using telepathic powers, Maestro is able to locate Vilk at Mount Crockett, which also inhabits the abandoned military base with nuclear weapons. As Robin, Impulse, and Maestro enter the base and attack the villains, it becomes obvious that Vilk and Deegan are looking to use the nuclear weapons for different reasons. Vilk kills his partner and sets off the countdown to start the missiles. One needs a password to stop the countdown again, but thankfully Bart's super speed allows to try enough combinations to be successful. After that, Robin, Impulse, and Maestro defeat Vilk's remaining henchmen. After parting ways with the mysterious Maestro, the boys make their way back to the lodge. Okay, that was the synopsis. Taking a look at the cover here before we get to the interior of the book and before I turn it over to Terence here. I think the cover is really good. It's got the big Robin banner across the top that lets you know that this is Robin's book plus Impulse. It's got Tim Drake, Robin front and center. The costume looks absolutely superb in this. I like the way the metallic sheen looks off of the R, the bright yellow from the yellow, can't tell my colors. The orange from the colors of the explosion in the background with Robin in the lead because, quote-unquote, it's his book. I'll get into that in just a second. With Impulse racing down the snowy bank behind him. It looks really cool. What'd you think of the cover here of Robin plus Impulse, Terence?
Yeah, the cover was great. And speaking of covers, and I forgot to say this, I mentioned that Impulse 20 came out this month. Impulse 20 has one of my favorite covers of all time. It's just like the top of Impulse's head, and you see his eyes, and he's reading a Flash comic with a little DC logo. So, and the rest of it is all white. It's kind of a lot of negative face. It's really cool. So if you've never seen Impulse 20, Google that cover because it's pretty cool. And Rob's costume on the here looks like
you
$1
sound
million.
Funny.
I mean, it looks fantastic. Like the R looks metallic. The laces, the colors, everything looks just amazing. And ditto on what you said, Impulse. And, I liked in the cartoon Young Justice, when Impulse showed up, they really did a good job making his costume, making him look like he just stepped out of the comic. It works really well here. So, yeah, great cover.
The thing that I think is odd to me, we'll see if you have the same opinion that I do, is that this got the Robin banner on the top of it, plus the Impulse to let you know, hey, this is Robin's book here. But with the art team and Mark Waid writing this book, this does not feel like a Robin book to me. We're so used to Chuck Dixon writing Tim Drake at this point that this feels like this should have been Impulse plus Robin. Did you get that vibe out of this? It didn't feel like a Robin book to me.
Well, it's funny you say that, and to avoid your question for just a second, I thought it was odd that there were no ads in here for Robin's monthly title or Impulse's monthly title. I'm not sure how the ads work, and I'm sure, and going back then, if you could change ads in different books, or it was the same ads in every book. Because I remember back like in the 80s and 90s, I'd read books, like I'd be reading like Wonder Woman 23 or whatever, and there'd be an ad for that book in the book, and I'd be like, I bought the book already, why is there an ad for this? I think even with some of the Nightfall and Nightquest, there was Nightfall and Nightquest ads for books in the same book. I'm like, I've got the book, why you could have put a different book here, and so I found that kind of odd, and I was kind of surprised it wasn't Chuck Dixon writing this. I thought it was pretty balanced between the two characters, like there was equal time for both of them, and a lot of time where they're together. I did kind of think to myself when I opened the book, okay, will this sound like Tim Drake? Now that this is somebody other than Chuck Dixon writing, it's me reading, it's Chuck Dixon writing, will it sound different? Will Tim be different? And I got to tell you, those first couple pages, he really did sound different to me. He did not feel like the Chuck Dixon Tim Drake. It sounded like Dick Grayson. The way Tim is overconfident, he's arrogant, he's making like jokes and quips and talking about Tom Cruise and making modern references. That's something Dixon totally avoided, was like the modern reference, and it just sounded like two guys, because this is written by Mark Waid and Brian Augustine, who you interviewed. It sounded like two guys just reverting back to classic Robin, the 66 Robin, the Dick Grayson Robin. But then as the book got going, that kind of went away, and it was more the Tim Drake that we're used to. Did you feel that in the opening?
Yeah, the opening seemed... this almost is, like you said, it's one of those things that Chuck Dixon wouldn't do, and he said it on our show, episode 51, go check it out, that he didn't try and do a lot of placeholders to let you know that this is from 1996. So the Mission Impossible movie is going on at this time. So that kind of dates the book. In this opening section, this is where I was really like, man, this is going to feel a little different since Chuck's not writing this. And this almost feels like it was more of a pitch for, we want to do this Robin plus one, but Chuck is knee deep in all these other Bat books. So let's get Mark Waid and his team, and we'll just slap the Robin title on this. And it feels like a Flash book, and it's more like one of those, I feel like as they were doing these first few pages, they were going through other Tim Drake books and going, oh, this is what Tim Drake is supposed to sound like. So yeah, it did have a little kind of like 66 vibe out of it. So let's crack this thing open, Terrence, and why don't you start the book off for us?
Yeah, so like for those of you who don't have the book in front of you, it starts off with Robin breaking into a place, descending by rope, a la Tom Cruise in that first Mission Impossible. And there's a voice on the line, which I'm assuming is Batman, and tells him to be careful. And Robin's response is, "Don't worry, I learned this move from Tom Cruise." And that's just not a Tim Drake kind of response. That's
No.
Dick Grayson. Then he's hanging upside down, and the person stole something from the Gotham Telephone Company, and it's from a really, really old computer, even old by 1996 standards. And Tim's response is, all right, but what did he ever use this stuff for anyway? Call waiting for George Washington, which is not funny, and it's not what Tim Drake would say. Like, Dick Grayson, yes, but not him. And then there's, I don't know, something else that I thought was here. I can't find it here. But then when this mysterious person shows up, who's a woman with a gold mask and long flowing gold hair and a purple costume, she snaps the rope. She rips the rope, and he falls. And on page 4, if you've seen Deadpool, where it's like, he's going to do a superhero landing. He's going to do a superhero landing. Got a super landing. Superhero landing. This is like classic Robin superhero landings. We have too many Robin superhero landings here. But when you saw that, did you think superhero landing? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. That's kind of funny. It's a good pose here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, it seemed weird too, because on page 4, this is clearly a woman, right? Like, she's clearly an adult, and Robin refers to her as a girl. There was a girl, but now she's gone. And then later on, she's undercover.
Maestro.
And as like the girlfriend of this bad guy, and then he figures out that the two are the same, and he goes and is about to call her a blonde bimbo, and then like stops himself. I don't know if you caught that. I have to find what page it was. And I thought that was a very un-Tim Drake-like kind of segment here. But then I guess here we go back. In page 5, they're at a ski lodge, and it's a little more sounding like Tim Drake. But was there anything else you wanted to say about those opening sequence, or are you ready to go skiing?
Yeah, it's one of those that I think it's a good start, but it left me a little. Maybe this is why I just didn't remember it as well as I do some of the other Robin issues. It just seemed off character for Tim Drake, and it was coming off such a great run so far from Chuck Dixon. It felt a little weird. So I'm glad it started to feel a little bit more like Tim Drake. Once we get into the body of the story. So. I don't know. I guess that's the only intelligent thing I have left to say, and just repeating what you said. So let's continue on.
Sure. So in the skiing part here, Mark Waid, I've heard him on interviews, and I've heard him talk about what a big fan he is of Archie comics, and I think he's even written a lot of the new Archies and Riverdales, and this has a very Archie comic feel with a bunch of teenagers and the gang here, and it's kind of cool to see Tim Drake's friends. Ives is here skiing with them. Ariana's here skiing. And I guess it kind of serves as like an introduction to people, hey, here's his circle. But it's kind of weird because he's tracking the bad guy to these mountains here in Virginia. And it just seems weird that he would bring along his friends. Like, if you're going undercover and trying to get the bad guy, why bring why bring trouble? Like Ariana, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe he couldn't go away skiing, I'm leaving for the weekend or what. I don't know. It just seemed weird to why bring this complication with you? Did you feel that too?
Yeah, it sounds like we're complaining already. It seems a little out of left field. Like, is this is this a class trip? They don't. If this was going to happen in a Chuck Dixon book, it just would have been Tim and Alfred going out. But did you set up that Ariana's there and Ives is there and a couple other people that they run into? So was this something that the school was doing as a ski trip? Or it made me go, was there something in the previous Robin issue where Tim and his friends just decided they were going to go up to the ski lodge for the weekend, and this case happened to be built around that? So Tim was like, hey, let's just go up there. He can use his friends as a cover. It seemed a little odd and a little like, hey, what's going on? And
Ariana seems a little off character too.
Yeah.
She seems a little more forward. Like at one point, what does he say? Ives says, and how about you, Ariana? Are you enjoying the Virginia winter? And she says, very much. And Tim, I'm looking forward to sitting by the fireplace tonight, ... even more. And the more is like emphasized. So it's like, I get it, but it was a little bit crazy. And then you see up in the window that they do have a chaperone. And then on page 6, which these pages are numbered, which is nice, you see that it's Alfred. And here's where I have a little issue with the art. The coloring at some points in this book, I feel, was kind of subpar, especially when we've been looking at a lot of our I think it's Adriana Roy's art coloring, which is just phenomenal. And here, like, this room is just way too yellow. Like, the walls are yellow, the floor is yellow, the carpet's yellow, the lamp's yellow, the towels are yellow. Like, everything is just like this yellow mustard color. Tim Drake comes in and he's got a mustard yellow shirt, which then turns white somehow in the next panel, and his pants are purple. I don't know. It just, the coloring just seemed, I don't know, off a lot of it. And then at one point, this is jumping ahead, but the I guess, what is her name? It's I gotta find it here. The person who cut the rope on Tim Drake, that woman, on page Maestro, yes, which I don't believe she ever made another appearance. On page 1920, on page 20, she rips off her blonde wig to reveal that she actually has blonde hair. Like, her wig and her hair look exactly the same almost. It's like, what is going on? And I'm only assuming that is some kind of coloring mistake somewhere where it said blonde hair and the colorist just did it blonde hair for all of it. But it's like, let me take off my blonde wig to show my blonde hair. But it's not horrendous where I'm like, oh, I can't enjoy this book, but it just seemed a little odd. Did you have any impressions about the coloring, or are you noticing it now as I say it?
Maybe noticing it now just a little bit, but it kind of looking at it now through that lens, it only seems like, okay, here are the 4 crayons we have to color with, and any other colors that you're going to use are just, that's almost like a pastel. Like, if you're going to use yellow, then you're going to use this kind of yellow, and then that kind of yellow, and then this, a lighter kind of shade of yellow. So I know that kind of sounds a little stupid, but it's not as deep as you would get, like you said, from an Adrian Roy. So I don't know if this was a rush job, or they just weren't paying that much attention to the background colors. Like, oh, we're going to make Alfred's, shirt yellow, and then the room is going to have more like an olive green color of a shirt, and then that's a little derivative of a yellow, and Tim Drake's shirt is yellow, the wall is yellow, the door is yellow, so it just seems a lot of repeating colors throughout the book. Even the blues are the same way, where everybody's got a different shade of blue. Like, all the skiers out there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in blue shirts or blue pants, and the snow has a tinge of blue to it.
Especially when you read some modern comics with the computerized coloring and all the different colors that are available now. This is quite shocking, but it makes you appreciate what some great colorists back in these ancient times could do. So Tim Drake comes into the room with Alfred. Alfred's setting up all this high-tech, fancy equipment, and Tim has got, looks like some kind of telescope, which he's sticking out the window, or a camera looking at this bad guy. I can't even remember his name. Was it Volk or something like that? Vilk. Yep. Vilk. Vilk, who's a Russian who is, we're not really quite sure why he stole that ancient computer or what exactly he's doing, but they're monitoring it. This is where we see he's got a young girlfriend with blonde hair and some other guy. And then in the background, as he's looking, he says, here come some kids, or nothing more kids. One in particular with really big feet. and I thought that was a funny joke on the art style with Impulse. And here comes Impulse, and we see some of his friends from the book, which I haven't read Impulse books in 20 years, so I don't really remember quite all these kids. But one of them, I can't remember his name here, says his wallet is missing. And Bart, Impulse, secretly gets out of his parka, runs a few hundred miles home, gets his wallet, says he found it in the snow, while Max Mercury is flipping out that he's going to be exposed and caught. So I guess this is kind of their way to introduce that, like, this is Impulse, and he's a speedster, and the people around him on the school trip don't know who he is, and he's just kind of, impulsive,
right.
say, you know, and then it gives you sort of a little background of who and what he is. So, you know, these team-ups and stuff, it's always a little clunky of how the heroes are going to meet or how they're going to be together, or how, you know, the coincidence that they both happen to be on the same ski slope at the same time and all that. But, you know, you got to kind of, I think, take that with a grain of salt. If you let that bother you too much, then what's the point of even, reading the book? You know, at some point you just got to kind of go, okay, yeah, it's a comic. Like, I don't need, 20 extra pages of how they got together. Just put them on the same thing and let's go. What were your thoughts here on the introduction of Impulse and Max?
I thought it was really kind of clever. And the gag thing that I liked about it is you don't even see him get out of his parka, that he moves so quick that, and maybe it's just because the parka is so thick and the snow boots are so big that everything just stood up. But it's a nice little gag that he zips out of his parka, runs home, is able to find his buddy's wallet, and gets back in it before Carol, Carol's her name, is able to put her hands up on top of the jacket, and bam, he's right there. So I thought that was a neat little gag that you kind of see how fast he really is.
And you know what I do like is they sort of hint at who and what he is, but they don't kill you with 3 pages of exposition giving us his whole backstory and all that. Like, it just gives you just a hint of who and what he is, and it's almost like, okay, if you like this, go read his book. And so I appreciate that as someone who's read 1 million pages of, like, just, feeling like you're reading a Wikipedia, excerpt. And then this is something that no one's ever said before in comics, but, and I'm ready for some hate mail,
Yeah, here we go.
We're going to get some hate mail. All right. So when Tim asks Bart, where do you come from when the two groups meet up, Bart says, Alabama. I come from Alabama. And Tim says, don't get much winter down there in the South. Well, it's great to meet someone from someplace interesting. So this is the first and only time anyone's ever referred to Alabama as someplace interesting. Because I don't know about you, I've been to Alabama and I didn't find it very interesting. It was kind of very boring. But, all right, so Alabama people, send us the hate mail.
Please don't.
But, although there's probably somebody sitting in Alabama going, yeah, tell me about it. I'm the one stuck here. And where I live is not much better either, because I'm pretty bored where I am. It's not an exciting place. But anyway, they end up on the same ski lift together, Tim and Impulse, and they're kind of going up the ski lift. And I think it's kind of funny that Impulse kind of gets like a fear of heights and is afraid to go down the mountain on skis normally. I couldn't tell if he was actually really afraid or if this was like part of his cover, and they don't really go back to it. But what did you think? Was this real or was this his cover?
I can believe it was real. I mean, for all we know in the future, they may not have had snow or done anything like this. So for somebody that's able to run really fast and be in control, he's not in control here. But what I think is even funnier, there is Carol and Ariana, and neither one of the two boys are with their respective girlfriends or a girl interest. It's like, nope, the girls are in one cart, and Bart and Tim are in another ski lift. I thought, that's kind of odd.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even think of that until you just said that. And then I'm like, yeah, what's going on there? That's kind of funny. And then, did you have the original Game Boy?
Yes, I did.
Did you catch the reference to it on page 13?
Yeah, I thought that was cool. What's it called? I can't find.
It's called Game Lag.
Yeah, that's right. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, if anyone's played the original Game Boy, this will bring back memories for you here. And so Bart is playing the game, and he noticed this bad guy, Vilk, leaving in the middle of the night. And so that piques his interest, and lo and behold, Robin is outside waiting for him, and Robin's in his costume, but it looks like he's got like a shirt on underneath it, so he doesn't have his skin exposed. And he does say that he's got some kind of where is it here? Thermal filaments in his costume to keep him warm. So Robin is sort of cross-country skiing, going after Vilk here. Any thoughts on this, Rob?
I did not realize it until you said it, that he has a black undershirt on. Like, normally some of those, they kind of forget to bring that back up after a while, like the colorist will forget it. But yeah, I'm scrolling through the pages here really quick, and yeah, he's got the undershirt all the way through. I think that's a nice little detail that I think is sometimes overlooked, where some people go, how can he stay warm in a costume like that? That's pretty cool.
Shoot, and I meant to look through this, and I didn't have time. But there was one issue of Robin Comics where he was like in snow, and he had a different version of his costume that it's on the cover where he's like being pushed by the snow. It's something in the 60s or 70s, I think, maybe, I don't know. And I was kind of thinking like, oh yeah, too bad they didn't break out that uniform. Do you know which cover I'm talking about?
I'm trying to scroll through and find it here. I remember seeing it. Like, he's kind of getting forced out by the snow, and it's kind of surrounded him.
Oh man, I'll never find it. I have to go to editor's note. This is where Rob will pin which cover it is after we spend an hour looking.
Right.
So Tim is trying to be stealthy and follow Vilk, but he gets his ski caught in a branch and it breaks, which causes Vilk to kind of look around and just start shooting. just turn. I'm in the woods. I heard a snap. I'm just gonna shoot a machine gun. That won't get anybody suspicious in the ski lodge that's only a few feet away. But Impulse comes running out and he says, "Relax, Redbreast. Impulse is on the case. Consider these bullets caught." And he takes all the energy from the bullet. And what I love here is. Bart pushes Tim into the snow so he doesn't get shot again. And Tim looks right at him and says, "Thanks for the save, Bart." And Bart says, "That's okay." And this is when he makes that face and yells, "Did you say Bart? No, I'm not Bart. Who's Bart?" And I love that Tim just got his a secret identity in just, a split second. And he says, "Big hair, bigger feet, call it a hunch." Yeah. So, but then Bart wants to know Tim's secret identity, and Tim will not tell him here. But did you like Tim figuring out the secret identity super fast?
Yeah, I think that was pretty cool. And I'm trying to remember if it's Young Justice or the Jeff Johns Teen Titans run. Maybe it's both, but I think it started in Young Justice, and maybe it carried into Teen Titans, where Bruce told Tim not to reveal his secret identity. And I know that lasted quite a while before it finally came out. And I want to say maybe went all the way through Young Justice before it gets into Teen Titans. But anyway, editor's note, issue 89 and 90 was that Robin costume where he's in like the park or whatever.
It's cool. It almost has like a Guy Gardner kind of feel to it a little bit. And I really like that costume, and you don't see it very much. Now here, this struck me as really ironic because we're recording this podcast on August 12th, 2018. I read this yesterday on the 11th. And 1 year ago today, I know we don't do a lot of current events or political stuff on this show, but it was about 1 year ago they had all the riots and the protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. And if anyone's ever been to Charlottesville, I've been there several times. In fact, on my personal YouTube page, there's a couple videos of my family there. It's up in the mountains in Virginia. It's beautiful. We love it there. We go to Monticello and University of Virginia and the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it kind of broke my heart to see all the hatred ripping such a wonderful place apart last year. And now in the news, I guess they're having some protests for the 1 year anniversary, and there's some people there protesting sort of the white supremacy angle, and then there's people protesting against hatred and racism. And so here we find out that Vilk is working with a secret military camp, and then Robin relays that info to Alfred, who then tells him it's sort of a white supremacist militia group up in the mountains of Virginia calling themselves White Heat. And it's like, wow, 22 years later, and we're still, having this like white supremacy militia in the mountains of Virginia. It was almost kind of eerie. Did you make that connection when you read it?
No, not at all. I didn't even put that together. That is kind of eerie that came up. My takeaway from this page says there's enough major ordnance down there to arm Ohio. So I was like, oh, cool. My state got a little bit of mention.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick any of that up at all.
Rob's going to have to put a disclaimer on the start of this. The expressions or the opinions of Terence O'Neill towards Alabama are his and his alone. Okay, let's see. All right. Oh, so there seems to be a lot of people at this military camp because for page after page after page is Robin and Impulse fighting these militia people. It just seems like they're never ending. It's almost like Cobra and G.I. Joe on the cartoon or something. Like, it never ends. But as they start fighting them, we see the girlfriend, quote-unquote girlfriend of Vilk, who Robin thought could pass for his daughter, run off. And this is where she throws off her blonde wig to reveal her blonde hair underneath and her costume. And that, what was she again? Oh, Mistral. M-Y-S-T-R-A-L. And I tried to do a search, and I didn't see her appearing ever again anywhere in DC Comics. So if anyone out there knows of Mistral's fate or whereabouts, please let us know, because according to all the wikis and comic vines and all that stuff, she just is gone.
I did the same thing trying to look for her as well, and I came up with the same thing. So she's got to be a one and done character for the story. I kind of like
yeah.
I don't think that was funny, but okay. Yeah, I mean, I liked I liked her as she was in the story, but I'll tell you what is funny though, Terrence. As I was going through, the DC Wiki page, Deegan is dead. So they say last appearance. So they say first appearance for these other people, but they didn't put like final appearance for Maestro, which I thought that was kind of funny.
As I read this, right on this page here where she said Mistral, that's when I went to the website to try to look to see who she was, and I read that Deegan just died. I'm like, oh, well, he's going to die. Which one is he again? Like, who's he again? I kept forgetting. I'm like, which one's going to die again? And he is the leader of the White Heat, the white supremacy group here in the mountains of Virginia. And as they're fighting, a blizzard kicks up. At one point, I think Robin or Impulse says something of like, oh, this blizzard will help us fight them, and they can't see who they're shooting. But it's kind of funny, like, have they ever been to the mountains? Do they know how weather works? Like, when a blizzard comes in, people prepare for it. They evacuate ski lodges. Like, you move to lower ground. You hunker in for the night. It's like, oh, yeah, by the way, this blizzard just appeared. And then later on, they'll be back at, like, the ski lodge. Like, oh, we're worried about the boys. Let's hope for the best for them. Like, on page 22, it's just kind of like this mysterious blizzard just happens to come in, and then it will just happen to disappear. It's a blizzard that lasts for about 45 minutes. And then here in the fighting, Vilk throws some kind of grenade which causes an avalanche which buries Tim and Impulse and Mistral, and Bart gets them out of it, but it took them a while, and they're like, well, why didn't you do that in the beginning? He's like, well, no one asked me to, because he's just kind of Bart Allen, and that's just kind of classic Bart Allen. So did you have any thoughts here about the avalanche, the blizzard, the cold front, the low pressure system, anything?
The low pressure system. I think the thing that's funny is that you're going up to the ski lodge and you're going to spend time with your friends, whether this is a school trip or something Tim just did. Wouldn't you have checked to see what the weather is going to be on this before you head out into the mountains? Like, you would have gotten that information pretty early on as you're preparing for your trip. You would have said, oh, there's a snow front that's moving in, and they're treating this like, aha, the blizzard is going to be able to help ward off the attack from the bad guys. Yeah, that's true and all, but it's also going to not only give the bad guys cover, but you're also going to be at a disadvantage, and it's played like it's up to your advantage. So I thought that was kind of weird But the whole thing with the blizzard, there's something that happens at the end of the book where we never get back to the blizzard and everybody being worried about it at all. And no, it's that's coming up. Like I said, it's going to be at the end of the book. It's coming up in a little bit here. I feel it takes some of the danger, and oh my gosh, I hope the boys are going to be okay out of it, away from the story. And like I said, when we get there, I'll kind of point out, hey, remember this scene on page 20.
Well, I didn't even think of this, but now that I'm over analyzing this, it's kind of odd because it's nighttime when Tim goes after Vilk on the skis, and it's nighttime when Bart leaves the lodge. So it would have been very easy for Max and Alfred here in the lobby to know what was going on and know that they're superheroes and just say, oh, yeah, Tim wasn't feeling good. He went to lay down. He's sleeping. What is it, 10 o'clock at night, 11? Maybe he'll be fine in the morning. Same thing with Bart, but yet they've got there's a search party going on for them. It's just kind of a weird thing that they would be worried. Alfred was just in communication with him. He can't come up with a cover story. He's just got to go, all right, I'm going to cover for Tim not being here. He's lost in a blizzard, people. He's going to die. Good cover, Alfred. Yeah, let's send the National Guard after him.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, that there's all this doom and gloom. Oh my gosh, all the boys are out there, and we kind of forget that story beat by the end of the book.
Yeah.
So that was just my little thing, that this sense of urgency and the poor cover on Alfred. Alfred has done this better for Bruce. Even when he gets his back broken by Bane, they say, "Oh, he wrecked a Porsche," and that's why this is going on. Tim is like, "Nope, he's in a blizzard. The boys are out there." That's just weird.
Yeah. So as we move on through the blizzard, now it's a trio. It's Mistral, Robin, and Impulse, and they're going through the blizzard, and they see even more militia guys at some old NORAD base. And we find out this is why they wanted to steal those old computer parts, because to use the old outdated computer to crack this old outdated lock that's here. And apparently the bad guys now have snow skis, and Bart sets up a rope. I mean, they just keep more and more of these bad guys. It's the most well-armed, well-trained militia ever. And it's kind of weird because on page 26, Impulse is setting up a rope so that when they come by with their snow skis, it'll knock them down. And if you look right where it says 26 in the snow, it says after Ramos. So I don't know if this was a panel that was in an Impulse book that Ramos drew, or he's just copying his style, or what's what. But it seems kind of a weird thing to put in the snow. Did you catch that little thing? Okay.
No, not at all. I didn't pick that up at all. I'm looking at it. That's the first I've ever seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see the moon pretty clear, which is kind of weird, because usually if it's a blizzard, there's clouds and you can't see them.
Right, but right.
This is a blizzard on a cloudless night. So the snowplow thing works. That they crash like a speedster into a tree on the moon of Endor, and now Robin and Mistral are fighting. And one thing I've noticed, especially in these art of this time, because I noticed it. I've noticed this in the Robin books. When we talk about the King Snake book, I'll talk about it. There seemed to be an issue with some artists when they had a character who was in the air fighting. The head and the neck don't seem to go with the body. And when we do the King Snake issues, I'll talk about that. But here on 28, did you notice Robin's head is just not in the right spot for his body?
No, I didn't pick that up at all. I mean, Mistral's head is kind of the same way on 27 a little bit, where she's going on to the jet ski. The jet ski seems like it's in the background a little bit, and her body is in the foreground, so it seems disproportioned. But if you're saying that's kind of how the style is, but yeah, it looks like Tim's head is completely fallen off.
Yeah. And the next part of the story is where it gets really like you just either have to take it with a grain of salt or make a podcast 22 years later after it comes out and laugh at it, which is what we're doing. And somehow these computer parts that Vilk had stolen from the phone company's old computer is able to get this old base that's just up in the mountains to launch every single nuclear weapon we have at Russia, since he's angry at Russia. Even though he's Russian, he's angry at Russia for not being the Soviet Union anymore, and is trying to, as he says, raining several hundred tons of nuclear nightmare on, quote, Mother Russia. So when you read this, did you have the same kind of like, kind of feeling as I did?
Yeah, a little bit. That's like one of the contrivances of, I've defected from the place that I hate. Now I'm going to blow up the place that I hate. Like, no.
Yeah. And what's funny is, you know, in another book I might be okay, but Mark Waid and Brian Augustine, I like expected better from them. You know, they're, yeah, you same thing?
I'm the same way. This really feels like it was a rushed job. Even going back to what you were saying about the colors of the book, it seems like it's a very limited palette, and this was probably kind of in a place of an annual. Let's get this thing out, and it's a very like basic story getting this moving along. So it's probably why it's a duo.
And the thing is, all this fighting, there's like page after page after page of fighting. There aren't really too many character beats. Like, I do like it that it feels more like Tim Drake than Dick Grayson. You know, we're not getting the little quips and the smart aleck answers. And there was one or two things like when Impulse said, "Well, no one asked me to get us out of the avalanche." You know, but for the most part, it's pretty bland. Yeah. It could have been any two heroes. It could have been anybody fighting and saying these things. It wasn't that great characterization, although I do like seeing Tim kind of kick butt, and he does kind of take charge of everything. Here's where I might get some more hate mail too, and I'm not going to get political. I'm just saying it's ironic. So when Mother Russia is going to face this nuclear nightmare, it is the conservative, right-winged, white supremacist who is trying to not get Russia blown up. I guess Degin kind of steps in and tries to stop him, and then he gets shot, and that's where Degin gets killed. But it's kind of funny with the news, and I'll let people take whatever side they want, but the news with all this stuff about collusion and Donald Trump with Russia and what was going on with Russia and was Hillary Clinton with Russia and all this stuff, and then here it is, a book 22 years ago with, you know, right-wing white supremacists trying to save Russia. It was just like, oh my gosh, did they have some kind of like premonition about future events? Did you have any connection with any of that? Or?
No, maybe other than Donald Trump is really a DC Comics fan, and they said, here, read this Robin and Impulse story. Nobody will remember this, and we'll do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no connection there whatsoever for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it turns out, so Degin gets killed, Vilk runs away after starting the launch code, and Tim knows that there's a passcode, I guess, or a sequence that you type in to stop the war with Russia, stop that, but there's trillions of different combinations, and Tim doesn't know what the code is, but he knows the format. He knows that it's 5 numbers followed by 3 letters and then another 2 numbers. And since Impulse can go at super speed, he can type super, super fast every possible combination and disarm it. And this is where I wonder, like, this is where I get to, like, wouldn't the friction melt the plastic? Doesn't the computer have a processing speed that can't go that fast? Like that, I start thinking real world into it. So I mean, it's kind of clever to have them both solve it and have him do that super speed. And you know, it's the DC universe with Superman flying around, so maybe it's some kind of frictionless. Maybe the speed. Yeah, I mean, you could come up with something. Maybe his speed force prevents the keys from melting or something like that, but it wasn't really a nail biter ending. You kind of see from it takes them, let's see, what is it? Page 31, 32, 33, 34, till it shuts down. So it's 4 pages, and not once do you ever think, oh, they're not going to get it. Not once do you see it come in all 4 pages. It's more just like tedious, just kind of reading through to get to it. But what did you think of their solution to stop the war with Mother Russia?
I mean, you use your plot device of Bart being really fast, and the computers can only go so fast in 1996. But a thing that I was kind of looking at was Tim Drake is like Steve Buscemi in Armageddon, where he's like, please do a good job, please do a good job, please do a good job, while they're tearing apart the thing. Seemed out of character for Tim.
It's a little out of character, yeah.
That was something where I feel like the front of the book's kind of like the back of the book again, where Tim stops feeling like himself a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like you were saying about the computer, it can only go so fast in 1996, but who knows, maybe he has ginger-like fingers, nothing to do with the color of his hair, ginger, but where he could type as fast, or it's like, it's a comic book, you're reading too much into it, but looking at my computer in 2018 and knowing how fast it can go, there was no way my computer back in 1998 or 96 was going to go that fast. But it's part of the story, and it is what it is, and it's just, I think it's par for the course for the issue, really.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I think is missing in the Flash. And I heard the Mitch Gerards, I think his name, the artist on Mr. Miracle, was talking about him and Tom King want to do a Flash story, but have no running poses throughout the whole story, and just have it all be about time and doing stuff with time and doing the 9-panel format with time. And I think it's not done enough in how, all right, Flash can go fast, but the rest of the world can't. So you could go to a keyboard and you could type real fast, but the keys will melt, and the screen, the cursor, like the letters aren't going to come up super fast. Like you still got to wait for that letter to come up. You can super fast, like, go in your kitchen and, put the coffee in the filter and put the filter in the pot and press start, but you still have to wait 5 minutes for it to percolate.
Right.
And, brew it, and they don't do that enough in the Flash. I remember Grant Morrison was talking about how much he loved Superman Returns in the airplane sequence when Superman was trying to stop the plane from falling, and he grabs the wing and the wing rips right off the plane. It's like he's super strong, but the materials and the world around him's not. Like he still has the limitations of the world, and I just think that's missing a bit in the Flash, and I would love to see that Tom King Flash. But going to the next little bit, we see Mistral meets Vilk, and does she kill him? It's hard to say. I think she kills him, right?
No, I think she saves him right towards the end.
Or does she just take him as prisoner?
Yeah, I think she takes him more as prisoner. Looks like he's bound up here at the very end. The panel layout doesn't do a really good job. I'm trying to look here. Yeah, it looks like Robin and Bart have caught.
And Tim does say, nice job capturing Vilk.
Yes.
So, okay, yeah, she does, yeah.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, they're down there on the ground. And
then if you notice, the blizzard stopped. There's no snow.
Yeah.
And in fact, helicopters can now fly in the sky. So, and then guess what? Guess what there's more of? There's more henchmen.
Yes.
There's more militiamen. Even though their leader's been killed, their Russian guy's been taken, the girl's gone, there's still some more to fight. So page 36, we get some more fighting. And then this is really weird. Mistral takes off her mask, goes into her cabin, and then leaves in the out the window. And then we find out that not only was her blonde wig covering her blonde hair, but she was also wearing like a face mask, and which, don't they do that in Mission Impossible too?
Yes.
Like, don't they have like a face and then they Yeah, so they were borrowing heavy from Mission Impossible in this
Definitely.
one.
I got that. And her hair's blonde under the blonde hair, and the blonde wig, fake blonde, so it's more blonde on blonde.
Yes.
So I thought, let's just lean in with the blonde. Those are the only colors we have in our coloring palette for the issue.
Yes. I can imagine, too, the mask she was wearing of a different face was exactly the same as her other face.
Yeah.
She just rips it off.
Yeah.
It's the same face underneath it. So somehow she was wearing 3 blonde wigs at some point in this. And then Tim, on page 37, second to last page, he says, "She may be gone, but I have a feeling our paths will cross hers again someday." And then Impulse says, "You wish." And he says, "Knock it off," because Impulse had been teasing him that he kind of had a crush on her. But I don't believe their paths ever cross again. So
that would have been something for it to pan out, that maybe, and maybe that could have been a plan in the Impulse plus Robin book. She would have come back around or something like that. She kind of reminds me of the Golden Pharaoh a little bit the first time that I saw her likeness or whatever. But I liked her as a character, and it's kind of a throwaway line for Robin to say maybe there was a greater plan for her to be here. But I thought she would have been a nice addition to the team or whatever again. So anyway, that is all I have to say about that. So here's a part that I was trying to say earlier that I kind of fumbled around a little bit. On the last page is Robin and Impulse walking back to the cabin. I feel like should have been another beat. I mean, we know that they're going to go walking back to the cabin, but shouldn't they have arrived back at the cabin and everybody would have seen them, and they maybe could have got out of their costumes and been like, "Oh, hey, here we are. You know, we found a cabin just down from ours we couldn't get back to because of the snow," and it's not. The story just isn't flushed out right here, I think. And we're probably being overly critical about this, but I think another page or another couple panels in here would have really maybe tied that up, because as far as everybody else knows, they're dead. They're out in the snowstorm, and, you know, these boys are dead.
Yeah, I would have been happier if they would have cut out the whole page 22 and 23 with them worried about Tim and Bart missing. Just played it like no one knew they were missing, and then took those 2 pages at the end and maybe had like a little next day kind of thing, you know, like just a couple like lighthearted quips or something, skiing, or, you know, something, you know, funny like that, where like, you know, because Tim would know who Bart was, but Bart wouldn't know who Tim was, or something like that. So you could have done a little something more fun and a character beat that way, as opposed to this thread of, oh my gosh, they all think they're lost and dead in a blizzard and never come back to it. Yeah.
Yeah. That I agree totally. I mean, that, just like I said, that's what I would have done in that last little page, and getting rid of that sequence, I think would have worked very well.
Rob, I'll say this: there's some nice fluidity between this and Young Justice.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yes. We brought that word back. So there's your game at home, folks. Fit fluidity in.
Yes, Sherlock Ward dropped that on us on the other podcast that we did on the Batman and Robin Eternal podcast. And since when I edited that, I made like a mental note, like I have to drop fluidity into the podcast. So
yeah, that's really good on Sherlock. She pulled that right out of the air on us. I'm like, oh, real good, really good.
Ryan is our page 22 and 23, where we like have something, and Ryan has strep throat, and we'll never come back to it and find out if he's okay. We'll just, you know, never speak of him again. So, but I wanted to ask you about the ad on the back of the comic. It's the Batman Hollow series. These Skybox trading cards. Were you into these trading cards at all?
I bought a few different sets of the trading cards throughout the years. I think there was like a history of Batman or something like that in trading cards. I remember seeing these, and it was always something, oh, I had to pick them up, and I just didn't for whatever reason. So it was on my radar, and something every now and then I would go, oh, I had to go track those down. But you know, after a while, I was like, I think comics are going to be just good enough for me. So yeah, I never did.
I don't remember this particular series, the Hollow series, but there was a series a couple of years before that was like the DC Heroes, and I was crazy for them. And there was like a Marvel one. I didn't get the Marvel. A lot of my friends were into the Marvel ones. And then, I remember there was just like some random hologram cards in it. And there was the Star Trek Skybox series that had some random hologram cards. And I remember like all four cards. There were 4 random hologram cards, and all 4 cards were going at like the local comic book store for $50. And I bought them. I spent $50 on 4 hologram cards, which I couldn't even tell you where they are now. If I even still have them, I don't even know. But that was crazy. And that's going back. I was in high school, so this is $50 then is even more now. So it's sad.
50. Wow, that's crazy.
I know. I was gonna say $50 on Star Trek cards. If I had a girlfriend, she'd kill me.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff that we've all bought like that.
Yes. So all you guys who wasted all that money on dates and then going to the movies and popcorn, I had Star Trek cards.
Yeah, I got Star Trek cards. I got Batman cards. What do you got? A girlfriend?
Yeah. I said we're going to get hate mail from people in Alabama after that. People in Alabama are just going to feel bad for me. They're like writing the letter. They're like, I just feel bad for them. They're ripping it up right now. This poor guy.
He spent $50 on cards and couldn't take his girlfriend out.
Yes. Exactly. They weren't even Star Wars. They were Star Trek.
Yeah. There you go. That's funny.
Yes. So for our next podcast, Rob, you know what you have to do. You have to go to the tattoo parlor and get a big snake tattooed right on your chest, or you're not a true Tim Drake fan.
And then my wife will kill me and say, Terrence, why did you tell Rob to go get a tattoo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the plan going forward. Hopefully Ryan is better and he gets through his strep throat. We would love to have had him on this episode, but was unable to. So hopefully Nora, his wife, Sarah, and Ryan all get better much, much quicker. And we will be looking at the Detective Comics. Let me find the issue here. Detective Comics 685, Robin 17, and 686 for the King Snake crossover. And I had been saying that I think it was the last King Snake appearance in the Robin and Batman books, but I just saw somebody post a picture of King Snake from another Batman story. It's in issue 91, so that'd be kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's funny, but yeah, he's there. So anyway, that's going to do it all for this episode. You got any other final little words or tidbits or?
Yeah, it should be fun. I was rereading those issues this week because I thought that's what we were going to talk about today. So it's pretty fresh. And was it Robin 17? And what are the detective numbers? 685 and 686. And it's pretty cool because it also involves the Huntress and Nightwing, Ponytail Nightwing. And the story to me felt like a Kung Fu movie. Like, I don't know if you guys had it in Ohio, but growing up in Long Island, New York, one of the local stations on, I think it was Saturdays, I'd watch it at my grandmother's, and they called it like Kung Fu Theater. And they would just show martial arts movies from, I guess, China and Japan, and they were dubbed in English, but the mouths never matched the words and stuff, and they just had like these like kind of storylines that involved usually revenge and gangs and fighting and people, and this really felt like a Chuck Dixon Kung Fu movie, which I'll probably say the exact same thing on the next podcast. But if you haven't read these, pick them up, read them, and then listen to our next podcast, that'll be 79, right? 79! Yeah, so anyway, those are my thoughts.
All right, so this is where we're going to end episode 78. 79 is around the corner, and when we come back in a couple weeks, it'll be Batman, Robin, Nightwing, the Huntress, Ponytail Nightwing, and King Snake for episode 79. So on the behalf of Terrence, this is Rob, and a strep throat Ryan saying we will see you guys on the next episode. See you. Take care. Bye. Thanks for listening to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. This has been brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net. Tim Drake, Robin, and all Batman-related characters are under copyright of DC Comics. This podcast is solely for entertainment purposes, so no infringement is intended by this show. This show is not a good revenue stream. Actually, there's not a stream at all. All music and sound clips are under copyright by their respected copyright holders. So there should be no need to send the Penguins lawyers after us for ill-gotten gains because there are none. You can get a hold of the show a few different ways. We are on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. You can also email in at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com. Our Facebook page can be found at www.facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake. And as always, you can message directly over at the BatmanUniverse.net. So email, tweet, or message us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll read your comments or responses on the show. The show you're listening to can be found a few different ways through iTunes and Windows Media, also over at our host, TBU. Leave us a review on iTunes if you listen there. It'll help spread the word of the show. Make sure you head over to the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin. Thanks for listening to the show and hearing why everyone loves the Drake. We'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.